Good day, people. This is Catalin Rata, your host and facilitator into The Aftermath, a podcast where we uncover patterns and reverse engineer the future so you can spot opportunities and threats before everyone else does. We continue the Prices in the AI Era series. I'm joined by Martonca, founder of SoftFight and architect of the Just Value framework. Welcome back, Manu. Great to have you here.
Hi, Catalin. I'm glad we can talk again about pricing and AI.
Cool. We are 3 episodes in, and 3 patterns have emerged. AI amplifies your existing pricing philosophy, so precision without strategy just means you're wrong faster. Discovery becomes competitive advantage because human relationships unlock value AI can't see. And customers decide based on total cost, not just your price, which means optimizing the visible while ignoring the invisible is a losing game. But here's an uncomfortable truth that connects all 3 patterns. AI needs data density to work well. And there's one positioning choice that destroys data density faster than anything else. It's when companies say, we can serve everyone. Today's question, can generalists survive AI pricing? Let's build towards that answer with an intro question. Manu, what's the cost of keeping options open? Or in other words, when a company says we can serve anyone, what are they actually paying for that flexibility?
They become a commodity, which means a race to the bottom. You have to charge the lowest common denominator to be competitive. Anytime you keep your options open, and in this space, that for IT and software services, that means that you need to have team members that know multiple technologies, lots of them, and every year we keep adding to the stack. So with every new programming language, every new framework, every new cloud, anything that we add on top of what already existed, we only increase complexity. And it's already, I think it's the third conceptual thing that where we can apply the same rule. First, it was about laws, that it's much easier to create new laws than to remove them, and we keep adding to the legislation. Then it was about features in SaaS, where you develop a product, you have a few functionalities, and then over time you keep adding and adding, and it becomes bigger and bigger, and you can never remove any feature from there. And it's the same now with technology stacks. We keep adding ways of doing things better, faster, better adapted to the current world, but everything else from the past is still there. So you need people who know multiple programming languages, who know multiple clouds, and so on. So if you want to have these options open, that means that, one, you need to have these people in the team. Most of them will not be able to do anything. There are very few real full stack engineers. So you will always be left with either a bench or people who are allocated to projects where they are not really skilled and they cannot produce the value they should, and so on. So you have a big cost there. Then you have even bigger cost on the marketing and sales side, because it means that you can never really know who is your good customer, who is a bad customer, who you should sell what, or where do you find them. And unfortunately, this is a problem that's always been affecting and negatively influencing companies' fortunes. It's not only about IT, and it's not only about AI. So obviously, this is an ongoing issue for many decades now in business. But I feel like with every passing year, and now with AI changing everything in the services industry, this has become critical and fundamental. And
Yeah.
the easiest way to quantify this in terms of what you lose, to go back to your initial question, is you lose your pricing power. If you are an expert, a specialist, and you are competitive by delivering quality to certain types of clients, and you can charge 100, if you go as a generalist into the same conversations, you will maybe be able to charge 80 or 60 or 40, because you will then be compared with everyone else who can supply and offer the same services.
But in the new era, referring back to our series theme, would AI easily expose that complexity, and would it be able to solve for it, or is it just a premise that AI could fail in that environment?
I think it depends a lot on where we look at. The services business model is rather simple. We have three big moving parts: sales, delivery, recruitment. All the other functions in the company are support functions for these three. And if you have all three running well, you have a excellent company. You will grow and scale, and everybody will be happy. You can still have a good company with two out of the three working well. If you can sell well, and you can bring in clients, and you can deliver, and you have a process and the senior team, or you have a way of doing things that works, even if you're not so good at recruitment, you will solve it, because you have revenues, you are predictable, so you will solve recruitment. If you can recruit good people and you can deliver, there's a good chance that clients will find you eventually through referrals, even if you're not so good at sales and marketing and you don't really have a process there. If you are good at selling and recruiting, you will solve delivery eventually. Yeah. If you only have one of these, then you have a problem. And this is where AI obviously can have an impact in all three in different ways. Yeah. Whether we talk about software-driven, AI-driven software development lifecycle, I think I've heard this at least from 5 different teams in the past week. Yeah, so it's a bit of a thing right now. Obviously, companies have been using AI in recruitment, and candidates have been using AI in recruitment ever from the first day ChatGPT was public. And now we're talking about using AI in sales and pricing and finding customers and negotiating contracts. If you have some gaps, and when you are a generalist, you have these gaps and you have this missing pieces of the right puzzle, yes, you can compensate with AI. But we have the same problem as we talked about pricing from the beginning. If you only use AI to accelerate what you already do, you will just fail faster. Now, if you're not so good at, if you are not specialized and you don't have a very clear definition of who your customers are and what types of services you offer and how you solve those problems, just using AI to recruit faster people, let's say, this can be a straightforward way to solve it. You have some specialties in the team, and you have lots of people hired that are good at those, let's say Java.
Yeah.
And then, because you don't want to limit your options and you want to be flexible and you want to work with any client that comes in, you get a request and you somehow manage to win a project with .NET. But you don't really have experience in the team, you don't have experts, you don't have case studies from the past. And you just say, it's fine, we'll just use AI to recruit a team and we'll move fast and the client will not even know. Well, you will have a problem because you don't have the competence in the team to evaluate if those new hires are actually good and if they can deliver on what you promised to the client. So yes, you can use AI, you can be faster, you can theoretically solve this problem, but the best practice and the healthy way of doing it, where you're specialized, you have some expertise on the team, and you build on that over the years, will still be true, and that will be the better way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a long game, because entrepreneurs in general, money in is, at the end of the day, it's income, right? If you make a good deal, it's profit as well. So on the short term, that looks like a win. What I'm hearing from you is that on the long run, that might not be the case for a sustainable growth, or for specializing eventually.
I think if we want to write the history of the IT industry, this is definitely top 5 of patterns that we've seen. Yeah, where somebody makes a promise to a client, we're gonna do this, deliver this by a certain date, and then you don't get there, either because you didn't deliver the scope or the quality that was needed, or you just don't finish in time. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's I think the short term and the long term in the IT industry is a completely different dimension than in other domains, because here you can move faster in certain areas, but the faster you move at the beginning, the more obviously technical debt you create, and the more uh, problems you introduce that will come back later to bite you.
That's an interesting fact, considering the IT industry. It's an industry based on, should be an industry based on data. I don't think this is a concern.
The scientific method.
Yeah, it's not a concern for business owners or top level management, especially because I'm thinking that all this generalist approach and spreading data around is not that good for AI building patterns, is it?
No, of course not, because you can generate proposals, marketing content, sales emails, outbound sequences. Obviously, yeah, anyone can do that in minutes now with AI. But the more you do that to a wide audience, where you have different industries, different geographies, different business roles that you target, different ways, the more you'll go into a context where nothing that you do is a learning. Yeah. So you cannot apply any data to whatever you're doing, because today you do a sequence because you can generate quickly 10 emails and a database of 1,000 contacts, and you do a outbound campaign. And next week you do email marketing, or you do something else on another audience with another vocabulary, because you can quickly generate that.
Yeah.
Every time you do this, you're starting from scratch, and you cannot apply any learning from what you did last week and the week before, because there's no compounding effect there. Yeah, you as long as you keep changing the message and the positioning and the services and the audience that you're targeting, you will start from zero every single time. So that's the biggest negative consequence of being a generalist. You cannot learn. You cannot learn week by week. You cannot do A/B tests. You cannot, because there are way too many variables to manage. You just cannot see any results that you can then reapply and learn from that.
Let's put this into some scenario building. I'm gonna put you outside of your comfort zone a little bit, outside of the IT services industry, maybe widen our industry perspective a little bit. So let's simulate 2 AI consulting firms in 2028, right? So 3 years maybe into the AI development. Firm A says we do AI for everyone, right? It's a horizontal positioning. They are specialized in AI. Firm B says we do AI for healthcare revenue cycle. It's a vertical specialization. So both have AI pricing tools. Could you walk me through what their business looks like in year 3?
Well, I don't. This effect and the difference between the two scenarios is not even particular or specific to AI, because we will have the same effect whether they do AI or not, which is that in year 3, they might be very successful. Let's say they might reach the same level of revenues, the same team size, the same whatever measures we want to use for success. They might look similar on paper. It doesn't mean that they will be able to grow further in the same way. Yeah. Because if you are a generalist and you have a horizontal positioning and you say we work with any industry, most likely they have, I don't know, 20 projects they have done already in 3 years, or 40 projects they have done. And this is also true if it's a division in a large company. Yeah, it's the same effect. It doesn't need to be a small agency. Of those 20 or 40 projects, it's very difficult to extract any patterns because 3 of them would have been in healthcare, 2 others in financial services, a project for a manufacturing company, a project for a university. You will have all this spread of industries and use cases. And you will also have a spread of technologies that you use and processes that you put in place. The company that worked for 3 years in healthcare only was able to have a positive feedback loop where for every new project, they can reuse what they did in the previous projects, whether that's discovery workshops templates where they did it once with a client, and then for the next client, the next project, they realized, oh, much of what we did there also applies. Let's reuse the checklist and the meeting notes and everything to create the new one. And then you do this 5-10 times, you get better and better at it, and you create more value for the clients. They can reuse software components. They can reuse code, depending on the contracts, depending on the IP clauses in the contracts. But if you think about it in advance and you structure this properly, you can have reusable components that you can then invest in and reuse from project to project and client to client, which allows you to be much faster, to deliver higher quality, better scalability, security, testing, and so on. Yeah. If you are a generalist and you work for multiple industries, it's very difficult to do that. Even if you could reuse codes or you could regenerate code very easily with AI, the problem is vocabulary. And that's my personal experience of having worked in, 5 industries, different industries in 20-something years, where I would see patterns that apply across all industries, especially in marketing. But the vocabulary is so different between the different industries that it seems like you're talking about different things. And it's the same when you do software and technology and you do AI for different industries. Even if you are smart, you have a lot of experience, you can see the patterns, and you have an abstract level thinking that you can reapply to different problems. When you present them to the customers, they will not understand it because they need you to use their vocabulary.
That sounds ideal, right? An ideal path. I wanna challenge you a bit on converting those pathways into what does it look like as business outcomes. Like what are we looking out for in terms of KPIs, right? So if we do specialize, do we see more revenue? Do we see better margins? Do we see faster time to deliver? What's the major business outcome that comes from specialization?
I would say yes. All of those, but actually this is a key point. This is a key change now that is not yet happening, but needs to happen. Services has always been about headcount. The way we measure success at every single level, from agencies with 50 employees who would like to be 80, entrepreneurs with 200 employees who would like to have 300, to companies with 10,000 employees who would love to be at 20,000. At every level, success in IT and software services has been measured with headcount. When AI is about efficiency and you sell to customers better outcomes with less effort and faster delivery because we can use AI to improve everything, then headcount is not only that it's not a good measure anymore, it becomes an obstacle. It becomes a problem. And I don't know what will be the new in a few years' time, maybe in 2028, maybe later, maybe even sooner, we will have a new universal metric of success that everybody uses because it becomes ingrained. I don't have, we are talking about the aftermath, but I don't think anyone can know for sure what that will be. But my money is on revenue per employee. I think this has the biggest chance of becoming the new key metric for services companies. And this is what you will see. This is exactly where you see a difference between generalists and specialists. Because generalists, because they are commodities, they have a ceiling beyond which they cannot grow in terms of revenues per employees. They always have a cost pressure and a price pressure on what they're selling because they cannot differentiate and they cannot position themselves as being better than someone else to charge a higher price. If you're a specialist, you can do that. And the more, with every passing quarter or every passing year, you have a compounding effect where you can charge higher and higher price premiums, which means, and you can deliver better and better with fewer employees, or you can deliver more with the same number of employees. But the overall effect is that you increase your revenue per employee every year. And this becomes the key metric. This becomes the driver for growth, not headcount.
That's some great food for thought. I know I'll be thinking about that for a while now. And yeah, it's probably a shift that we need to at least analyze, if not make already make changes towards it. I think we've built this conversation to the point of being able to ask the primary title question of the episode. Can generalists survive AI pricing?
Yes, they will survive, but only barely, and fewer than before. Like if you take individual companies, of course, yeah, when you have an industry with tens of thousands of vendors, it's very difficult to say to someone, whatever their strategy or lack of strategy, to say, no, you have no chance, you will not survive in this industry. Obviously, individual companies, individual business units, they will survive. The question is, what are the costs for the people, for the managers, for everyone involved? And that always comes at a cost. Yeah, stress, health, time away from family. There's always a big cost there, which is not visible in the financial results. Not to mention cost of capital for the shareholders because they're blocking capital in an entity which is not profitable and is not growing. Yeah. And what is the opportunity cost of that? What I'm 100% convinced is that generalists will not be able to thrive in this new world. They will survive, fewer than before, enough to be a sizable part of the industry. We will, in any industry, there are commodities that just fight for volume, and they always try to squeeze efficiencies out of employees, out of vendors, out of something. Optimize taxes, optimize something just to be more competitive and to be able to to sell at a lower price because that's what some customers can afford to pay, or that's what they're looking for. So you will always have commodities in any industry. A part of the industry would be commoditized, and most of the time the generalists will be the commoditized entities. What I expect to see is that we will have more and more specialists. And the primary reason for that is structural. The more technology we have, the more differences, the more problems, the more use cases we need to solve with technology, the more combinations of possibilities. Cloud, on-premise, hybrid cloud, private cloud, public cloud, it gets more and more complex, to just take one very narrow dimension of the technology industry. The more we will see specialists for each of these narrow areas, meaning that the overall, on an industry level, if we take the percentage of all the revenues of the industry, more and more of these percentages will go to specialists, and some of them will become bigger and bigger while still remaining narrowly focused. And I think in the past, the more you grew because of headcount pressure, there was an immediate tendency to generalize. Basically, you add another business unit, you buy another company. It was always expanding the scope of the offering and the services, and that was the impetus, and that was the dynamic. You want to grow to be able to offer more services, to serve more clients, more industries, more geographies. I think we will also see lots of companies that will grow revenues by growing the revenue per employee, by staying very narrowly specialized and highly focused.
So that to me sounds like the aftermath is market bifurcation, right? It's survival mode and probably thriving mode, all of it being accelerated by AI.
Yeah.
I wanna make this a bit more practical on both.
I want to go back because I just had a thought.
Sure.
For this reason, we will see much more successful and visible services companies where we were used to see this for product companies. Yeah. There's the mythical 10 people unicorn construct in Silicon Valley, where you say, okay, you can build technology, or you could have potentially an idea where with 10 people, you build a company worth $1 billion. Yeah. And that was, I don't know, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. A few years ago, we went to one-person billion company. Yeah. The idea that with AI, one engineer, obviously not a business person, but an engineer would be capable of creating a technology that is so valuable that it would be worth $1 billion as a one-person company. Okay, we don't have to go to that extreme. But what is happening now is that in services, you can have 10 people in a business unit, or 10 people in a separate company, or 50 people in a business unit that have 100 million revenues. Because headcount is not a limitation anymore. You don't have that problem anymore that you're selling hours and time, which puts a cap on, okay, you can charge 1,000 euros per hour, you can charge $2,000 per hour, but there is a cap there. Even no matter how good you are and how well known and whatever brand you are first in the industry and everybody buys what you're selling, you still have a cap because you're selling time. If this decoupling happens thanks to AI, then we will see extremely successful, high revenue companies doing purely services with very few employees.
You've just tapped into my next curiosity already. uh, I wanted to kind of get from you some early warning signals that indicate a company is on the wrong side of the bifurcation, but also on the right side. I think what you just described is a signal that we can watch for as companies being on the right side of this bifurcation.
Revenue per employee. You just look at that, and then you know if you're increasing revenue per employee from year to year, and you should do that almost exponentially, then you're on the right track. If your revenue per employee is flat or even going down, or with a just very small growth percentage, then you know you're in trouble.
Okay, I think that also covers my question of summing up the pattern. I think you've done a great job summing it up. It's basically a KPI that we can address and we can start using in our maybe weekly meetings with the CFOs at least. So yeah, I think that the math to some degree and the patterns you just walked through, the specialist versus generalist comparison, that's going to force some uncomfortable conversation, like even the KPI you just mentioned and the overall position.
They're already happening. It's painful to watch for me because this is not AI driven. These conversations should have happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah. It's a decision that is now being, it's a lack of decision, the lack of courage that led too many companies and managers to a situation where they are exposed by AI as being generalists, and they cannot compensate anymore with what used to work.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you for the insights. I feel like this has been an intense episode, and also with some actionable insights that we can look into at least. So again, thank you for making the case so clearly. To everyone listening, if you're positioned as generalist now, this episode isn't about making you feel bad, obviously. It's about showing you the competitive dynamics that AI pricing already accelerates. The sooner you see it, the sooner you can obviously respond. So we've seen what happens when with AI pricing, what breaks in discovery, what AI can't see, and who wins. And there's one more question. What if preparation beats prediction? We will answer that in our next episode. Until then, keep building your future. This is Catalin Rata with my guest Manu, and we'll see you in the aftermath. Cheers, guys.